Welcome to my channel. This is Captain Binoy Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Lecture1. We begin a new series of lectures today, and in this series of lectures, we are discussing the fourth module of the course Linguistics. This is, of course, the course prescribed for the fifth semester BA English main students of the colleges of the University of Calicut. And in this series of lectures, we are discussing in detail each of the topics in this module, module 4 of the linguistics paper. And we will be discussing topics such as types of phrases, clauses and sentences, syntactic models, IC analysis, phrase structure grammar, transformative generative grammar, kernel sentences and transformations, deep structure and surface structure. Then we go for some transformations like transforming a simple sentence into a complex sentence, simple sentence into compound sentence, complex sentences into compound sentences, and we will also be discussing obligatory and optional interrogative. Then we will discuss do, support, negation, passivization, and coordination and subordination. So these are the topics in the module 4 of the course Linguistics. Today we focus on the very first topic, types of phrases. Let us just define what a phrase is. What is a phrase? A phrase is a small group of words standing together as a conceptual unit, typically forming a component of a clause. And we have two sentences here. Sentence number 1, the tiger is the national animal. Sentence 2, the sun rises in the east. So in both the sentences, we can see phrases. So sentence 1, we have two phrases, one in the subject part and another in the predicate part. In the subject part, we have the tiger, and the tiger is a phrase. Predicate part, we have the national animal, and the national animal is another phrase. Similarly, we have the next sentence, the sun rises in the east. The sun is the phrase, it is a noun phrase, and in the predicate section, rises in the east, we have in the east the second phrase. So understand the fact that in every language, especially in the English language, we have different levels. Say for example, we have the letters of the alphabet, we have words, we have phrases, we have clauses, and we have sentences and paragraphs. So we know letters of the alphabet, we know letters combined together is a word, and words combined is a phrase. So it's very easy to understand what a phrase is. We define a phrase once again. A phrase is a small group of words standing together as a conceptual unit, typically forming a component of a clause. And we have to understand what a clause is. A clause is a group of words which has a subject and a predicate. And in that way, we have to understand the fact that every sentence is a clause. And all complete sentences are clauses which are independent clauses. So we have different types of clauses, independent clauses and subordinate clauses. Okay, an independent clause is a clause which can stand alone, which can convey a meaning on its own, and all sentences are independent clauses, or to be very precise, all simple sentences are independent clauses. So here we do not study clause in detail, we study the phrase, and we understand the fact that a phrase is a group of words which is part of a sentence or a clause. And the tiger is a phrase, the national animal is another phrase, the sun is a phrase, in the East is a phrase. So two or more words together can be a phrase. And now we move on to a detailed discussion of phrase, and we have to understand the fact that there are different types of phrases, and in English grammar there are 8 different types of phrases, and these 8 types of phrases in the English grammar are noun phrase, verb phrase, gerund phrase, infinitive phrase, appositive phrases, participial phrases, prepositional phrases, and absolute phrases. Now let us look at all these types of phrases in detail. So exam point of view, you have to be prepared for a paragraph question like define a phrase, give examples for a phrase, which are the types of phrases. Remember, then you have to say the definition of a phrase. You have to say, of course, after a definition you have to give whichever question you are asked. After a definition you need to give examples. After that you have to give the types of phrases, and after that for each type of phrases you have to give 2 examples each. Now let us look at the different types of phrases. So of course I told you the different types of 8 types of phrases. Now of course we have a different slide here, and this slide is of course a repetition of whatever I told you. We have the definition of a phrase, a group of words that stand together as a single grammatical unit is a phrase. It do not contain a subject and a verb. That is the second aspect of a phrase. And now we have examples there. 4 hostile newspapers are more dangerous than 1,000 bayonets. And in this sentence, 4 hostile newspapers is a noun phrase. That is, we have the head word in the phrase newspapers, and newspapers is modified by 2 words in front of preceding the head word, that is newspapers. So the number and the very quality of the newspaper is mentioned there. 4 hostile newspapers. So newspaper is the noun. It is preceded by 2 words, and these 2 words are of course adjectives modifying the head word newspapers. And we can say that here we have a noun accompanied by 2 words, and it is of course a noun phrase. So what is a noun phrase? A noun phrase is noun along with 1 or more words. So 4 hostile newspapers are more dangerous than 1,000 bayonets. And in the second part we have 1,000 bayonets, right? You have bayonets, right? And preceding the bayonets we have 1,000, and that can also be another phrase. Now we look at the next example. An army marches on its stomach, right? Look at that. So an army marches, an army is the subject, marches on its stomach is the predicate, and in the predicate part we have on its stomach. An army marches where? On its stomach. And this is another phrase, and this is of course marches how? Marches on its stomach, and it's doing this phrase on its stomach does the function of an adverb, and we can call it an adverbial phrase. Now let's look at the third example. England is a nation of shopkeepers. So here we have England is the subject, is a nation of shopkeepers is the predicate, and in is a nation of shopkeepers we have of shopkeepers. So in the England is a nation. What is special about this nation? Of shopkeepers, and we can say that of shopkeepers is doing the function of an adjective. So shopkeepers along with of is a phrase, and it is an adjectival phrase or an adjectival phrase. And now we move on to the different types of phrases. We have 8 types of phrases. Number one, noun phrase. Noun phrase consists of nouns and all their modifiers. Okay, we have a noun and the modifiers. So, sentence 1, we have a noun phrase. The teacher is coming to the classroom. The teacher is a noun phrase, and to the classroom is yet another noun phrase. Teacher preceded by the, and classroom preceded by to the. So a noun phrase consists of nouns and all their modifiers. Another example for noun phrase is the tall tree is full of flowers. The tall tree is full of flowers. Now we have the second type of phrase, verb phrase. What is a verb phrase? A verb phrase is made up of verbs and all their modifiers. So we have a sentence. She has left her puppy on the road. She has left what? She has left her puppy on the road. So her puppy on the road is a verb phrase. She has left what? Left her puppy on the road. Okay, and now we have the prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase. What is a prepositional phrase? A prepositional phrase begins with prepositions and can act as nouns, adverbs, or adjectives. Say we have the example here. The computer is placed on the table. So in this sentence, the computer is placed on the table. On the table is a prepositional phrase because the phrase begin with preposition on, and on the table is a prepositional phrase. Another example is, in the end, we all have to win. In the end is a prepositional phrase, begins with in. Another example, on this day he was born. On this day. On is a preposition and on this day is a prepositional phrase. So what is a prepositional phrase? A prepositional phrase is beginning with prepositions and can act as nouns, adverbs, or adjectives. So here we have the computer is placed on, placed where? So on the table is functioning as an adverb. So it can be an adverbial phrase also. So now we look at gerund phrase. The fourth type of phrase is gerund phrase. What is a gerund phrase? Gerund phrases are made up, or rather, gerund phrases are noun phrases. Noun phrases beginning with gerunds. And we know what a gerund is. Gerund is formed by adding ing to a verb that describes an action like smoking, sleeping, etc. So, a gerund phrase or gerund phrases are noun phrases that begin with gerunds, ing forms, and they just describe an action. Say for example, here we have a gerund phrase, crawling down the stairs. Crawling down the stairs is dangerous. Okay, you can say this is dangerous. What is dangerous? Crawling down the stairs is dangerous. A lion is dangerous. What is dangerous here? Crawling down the stairs is dangerous. So this phrase, crawling down the stairs, is a phrase, and because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 words, and it's a gerund phrase because crawling is a gerund, and this phrase begins with crawling. So crawling down the stairs is a gerund phrase. A gerund phrase is a phrase which begins with a gerund. Now we have the fifth type of the phrase, infinitive phrase. What is an infinitive phrase? An infinitive phrase is noun phrase that start with verbs that are in their infinitive forms. That is, of course, two infinitive form. We have two infinitive. And the example could be, to be a topper, you have to work hard. I tried to offer advice, but she was too arrogant. Okay. Similarly, we have an example here that is to crawl in the whole room. To crawl in the whole room. To crawl. So to crawl in the whole room. So to crawl is the infinitive, and in the whole room is a phrase, or rather groups of words that go with the infinitive, to crawl. And to crawl in the whole room is dirty, or rather is very bad. So we have a sentence, right? So this part of the sentence, to crawl in the whole room, is an infinitive phrase. So once again, what's an infinitive phrase? An infinitive phrase is noun phrase that start with verbs that are in their infinitive forms. Like to crawl in the whole room is very bad. Okay. Now we have the sixth type of verb phrase, or rather sixth type of phrase, and that is participle phrase. Participle phrase. What is a participle phrase or a participial phrase? A participle phrase or a participial phrase start with past participle or present participle. Say for example, here we have a sentence, washed nicely, the entire room is shining. Washed nicely, the entire room is shining. So look at that blue part of the sentence, washed nicely. So washed is the past participle form, or the past form of wash. Wash, washed, washed. So you have a phrase, you have another word added to washed, and it is a phrase. So washed nicely, the entire room is shining is an example for, of course, a sentence with participle phrase or participial phrase. Another example could be, broke as hell, life no longer appealed to him. And now we have the seventh type of phrase. Seventh type of phrase is what is known as appositive phrase. Appositive phrase. So what are appositive phrase, or what is appositive phrase, or what are appositive phrases? Appositive phrases restate and define a noun. They restate and define a noun. They are made up of one or more words. Say for example, we have the example here, my favorite bike, Harley Davidson, is still a dream. Look at that. My favorite bike is, of course, a phrase that is just defining Harley Davidson, right? So appositive phrases restate and define a noun, and they are made up of one or more words. Say for example, another one, her favorite hobby, gossiping, pisses a lot of people. Another one, my car, Mercedes G63 SUV, remains to be my pride and joy. So here in appositive phrases we have restating and defining of a noun. My favorite bike, which is that bike? Harley Davidson. So, or rather, Harley Davidson is my favorite bike. It is just restated and defined. So that is appositive phrase. And keep in mind the fact that appositive phrases often are followed by comma. Now we come to the 8th type of phrase, absolute phrase. What are absolute phrases? Absolute phrases comprise of subjects but not action verbs. So they cannot stand alone as complete sentences. These phrases modify the whole sentence, not just nouns. So we have example here, an absolute phrase. The race finished. My friend came first. The race finished. My friend came first. So you have a subject, and of course the that is the race finished, right? The race finished. The race finished, right? The race, that is the subject. Finished is the verb. And what is the result? My friend came first. My friend, of course, became the first. So, or other you have other type of absolute phrases. Say, for example, backed by the Soviets, the president of Syria continued to be defiant against the West. So here the complete sentence is the president of Syria continued to be defiant against the West, and the absolute phrase is of course backed by the Soviets. Now we have another example. Thirsty, hungry and exhausted, the homeless man decided to turn back. So the homeless man decided to turn back. What under what circumstances or under what condition, right? What made him turn back? Because he was thirsty, hungry and exhausted. Thirsty, hungry and exhausted, the homeless man decided to turn back. So once again, an absolute phrase comprised of subjects but not action verbs. So here you have a subject but not action verbs. So they cannot stand alone as complete. So the race finished, it cannot stand alone. Similarly, backed by the Soviets cannot stand alone. Thirsty, hungry and exhausted cannot give us, it doesn't give us, or we do not get a complete meaning from that. So absolute phrases do not give us complete meaning. They are meaningful when they just remain close to the very clause, the main clause. So in this sentence, the race finished, my friend came first. My friend came first is the independent clause, and that is being modified by the absolute phrase, the race finished, or it could even be the race having finished. My friend came first. Okay, so with this we come to the end of lecture 1 in this series. We have discussed the phrases. We know what a phrase is, and we know that there are 8 types of phrases. Next lecture we discuss clauses, and we will be discussing different types of clauses. So thank you so much for listening.